where'd the passion for bread come from? Because to an outsider, when I'm walking through Jungle Gyms and Mark points it out and he says how much he loves it, but to me, initially, before I know anything about it, I'm like, oh, there's another brand of bread.
Right.
Where'd the passion come for bread? I'm looking at 4 different types here. Where'd it come from? Why? Why this?
Why bread?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say, bread is a very special food. And it has really been horribly abused over all of these years. Like what we do to bread as a food industry is pretty gross for the most part.
Tell us why.
Well, because it's just loaded with a lot of crap. You got hidden sugar, high fructose corn syrup in most of it, lots of preservatives. I mean, if you put the standard loaf of bread out today, it will still be there 3 months, 4 months, 5 months later without a bit of mold on it. It's gross. And it contributes to people gaining weight and spiking blood sugar and all of that. So it's not really surprising to most people to say that. But if you think about the origins of bread, bread is an important food. Like going back to ancient Egypt, the Egyptians were the first ones to create bread. It has been a food source that has sustained civilizations. Legitimately. Think about the French Revolution. The people could not get their bread and they revolted. So the role of this food is important in our world. That's not the reason I decided to go after bread. The reason I went after bread is because I'm in the food business. I've been in the food business for 12 years, longer actually. And I, over that time, developed a certain specialty in baking and baking better for you goods that have no sugar and still taste really delicious. So a few years ago, I was starting to gain some weight. I'm 49. My weight has fluctuated over the years. I happen to really love bread. Sourdough is my favorite bread. And giving it up is next to impossible for me. I was a little girl. I grew up, here in Cincinnati. My grandmother, who was my absolute angel in my life, I spent a lot of time in her house in St. Bernard. She would make bread, fresh bread, and she would make lots of other baked goods too. But people associate the smell of bread and baked goods with comfort and love. That's what I do. And so to not eat that is really very, very difficult. It's ingrained in me. It's an emotional food. So I decided that I wanted to figure out how to make a bread that tasted like the bread that my grandma used to make, but didn't have calories and is actually good for you.
That sounds impossible.
But I have a really amazing roster of incredibly smart people who I go to for really tough challenges, food scientists, bakers, manufacturing experts, and others. And so one of them I went to and I asked her to create a recipe. And she did. It was kind of a side project for a number of years, but perfected this recipe in our kitchen. And when she did, decided that this was really good. It was certainly better than anything that I had tasted on the market. But it was something that we had just created in our little commercial kitchen. So together with her and another business partner at the time, decided that we were going to go for it. And so that's when we decided to start selling it. And selling it required us to find a producer who could make more than, 30 at a time, which is what we were doing in our kitchen. Well, it turns out when you try to make this bread in any type of volume, it doesn't work so well. And there's a reason for that. There's a scientific reason for it. We didn't realize at the time. What's happening is the ingredients that we use in this bread are devoid of carbs and sugar. Mm-hmm. What do yeast need when what's the role of yeast in bread, right? Yeah. It's sugar so that they produce the energy they need to create the carbon dioxide that causes bread to rise. What happens is they get just enough, you get the yeast in there, and they have just enough energy to create just enough carbon dioxide, and then they peter out. So after working with various bakeries, sometimes they would proof and it would look great, and sometimes it wouldn't. It was very variable. Some weeks I'd have great loaves of bread, other weeks I wouldn't.
So everything's figure-outable.
Never count on it.
Everything's figure-outable.
Could never count on it.
Yep.
And after literally a year of this, trying to sell it, I was in Jungle Gyms. I was in, 5, 6 different retailers at the time, working out of this one local bakery. We all were really frustrated at that point, and we were at each other's throats at that point because I'm going, why can't we get this bread to work? And I'm looking at my food scientist, and she's looking at me, and we all have these reasons, hypotheses, nothing's working. And it kind of just, it just kind of crashed a little bit, and they didn't want to be part of it anymore. And I respect that. I knew at that point that I had to make a decision. I didn't have a food scientist anymore. I didn't have my other partner anymore. I needed somebody to take on those roles, and I couldn't do it all myself. So I basically said, okay, I've got to find the right bakery. I got to find a bakery that knows how to do this stuff. And so I went searching. I looked for referrals from some of my ingredient suppliers, and I ended up finding a bakery outside of Ohio. It's highly confidential, so I can't tell you which one, but it's outside of Ohio, and they're a big bakery. And when I went to this was in April of last year, I said to them, here's the recipe. I conceal part of it so that they can't copy it. But they have experience with keto style breads. And they looked at it and they're like, okay, seems doable. I don't see any problem. I was like, okay, great, because I can't get it to work and I don't know that it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. I'm at peace with it. I'm walking. And that was my decision point. I really felt at that point, if it didn't work, I was okay walking. I had some agony about it.
It's a moment. Do you have that date written down?
I do. I know exactly when it was.
Yeah, that's a big moment.
I went to them. I said, I really don't know if we can do it. Great. I'd love it. And I was frankly surprised that they were even willing to do it. I think they were curious more than anything.
What a moment in your life.
I had this kind of crazy woman coming to me, asking me to make her bread that she's,
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what happened?
Well, we're sitting here looking at 4 different types, so I'm assuming it went well.
It not only went well, it went perfectly.
Get out of here. Nothing works perfect.
It did, though. The first batch,
Okay.
there were problems with other batch, but that first batch went beautifully to the point where they said, this is better than what we make. I couldn't, tears. I'm on the floor. I'm a mess because I was fully expecting it to fail. I really was.
Was this on the phone or did you actually taste it and see it?
I was there.
You were there.
Yeah, I'm always there.
You're crying on the
It's
floor.
12 hours away. I'm always there.
So you're really crying on the floor.
Absolutely.
And they're like, yep, we were right. She's crazy.
She's crazy. Yeah, but you know what? 12 times later, I've been up there. They still work with me. They like me. We're good. They believe in this product.
So it was perfect. The first batch was perfect.
The first batch was perfect. And the reason why, what I now know that we didn't know then and we couldn't have known.
It was your love. It was the love you had
It was
for
my
it.
love. It was, we needed a high speed process because those yeast gas out.
Quick.
They only have so much time to do their deal and then they are done. So in other bakeries, if it's, where they're co-packing, taking my product, but I'm one of like 50 other things they're doing that day, my dough sits for a minute before they get it into the proof box, they get it into the oven. It can't do that. You got to get this from here to here in one continuous process, and it has to go fast. And that's what they're designed to do. They go fast. So when I run this bread, I have to run a lot. I have to get this on the line going fast. It is exhausting. It is an exhausting day at the bakery, but it is so cool. It is so satisfying to see it working.
So then you had to figure out, how do you sell a high volume of it before it goes bad?
That's right.
So how
that's
do we do that?
Critical issue number 2.
Yep.
Finding frozen storage. So the thing about this bread is when it's baked, actually turns out to be a pretty robust dough. So once it's baked. So
does robust mean like the density of a sourdough or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's springy. Like it absorbs moisture. But it stays springy.
Got it.
It's a very interesting blend of fibers. And so it can freeze and thaw multiple times and it still tastes good. So I knew at that point I needed to get a frozen storage facility. And finding frozen storage for, a few pallets at a time in Cincinnati is next to impossible. Very, very difficult to do. So I had to figure that out, and I figured that out. I've got again, a somewhat confidential relationship with an organization in Cincinnati that I cannot reveal because then everybody will go to them and want the same thing. And I'm sorry to all my people out there, but
This is the second moment you're like the evil scientist. She's handling a strobe and she's putting her fingers all, because the first one was, you can't tell us where it's baked. Now you can't tell us where it's stored.
everyone will know my secrets. But
Is the next thing going to be, you can't even tell us where to buy it? Like, is that the...
no, I want everybody to know where to buy it. But this is the unfortunate reality. Like, as a startup, it's hard enough to do this. You know, if you've got the resources and you're a big company, you're making a lot of product. When you're a startup and you're doing it on such a shoestring all the time, it often feels really impossible.
You can't give away your secrets.
Right.
This isn't like
So I
Elon
worked out-
Musk opening up the patents for Teslas. It's not like that.
No.
Okay, all right.
No, but I found a really amazing partner who stores my bread for me.
Okay.
And so those were the two killer issues that I've been able to overcome, that I've been able to figure out in the last year.